Deseret Saints, the industrious people of the Lord. Tomorrow is Mix the Bread Dough day, so time to feed the starter so that it's ready for tomorrow when I make the bread. And my starter is named Dough Minions. So in getting it ready for tomorrow, what I'll do with it in the jar there is I'll add about say about 60, 70 grams of flour to the jar. So we'll measure that out. There's 20, 40, we're 60, almost 60. Let's go 70 because I was a little bit low anyway. So bring it up to about 70. There's 66. 70. So there's 70 grams of flour added there. And then I'm going to add equal amount of water by weight. So bring it up to 140 grams. So that'd be 70 grams of flour, 70 grams of water. Come on. Just a little bit more. There we go. Just a bit over, but that works. And then this will be left out on the counter overnight to allow the microbes to grow, multiply, and so forth. But it's got to get nice and bubbly and frothy and so forth before it's going to be added to the dough. But I'll show you in the morning how everything's put together. And that's how I get the starter ready for the next day. So I got to make some more flour for the bread. My container of flour is getting a little low. I grind my own, make my own mix, which makes me a little bit happier with the bread when I eat it. So typically I'm going to mix some red wheat or white wheat with barley and buckwheat. So I'll start off with about 1,000 grams of wheat. So measure that out. There's 500. Just over 1,000 there. And then I'm going to add to it a couple hundred grams of barley. That give it a little bit different flavor than just the wheat. I think it ends up with a little bit better flavor. And then I add a couple hundred grams of buckwheat as well. And then from there, we're going to grind it. We got a whisper mill here. And the way this works, the whisper mill is pouring it. Well, you got to turn it on first, otherwise it'll jam the whisper mill up. This is an older model we've had for several years. A little loud, so I don't know whether you'll hear me talking while it's running. Turns on. Bread has a lot of symbolic meaning, scripturally and spiritually, and it ties to the body and life of Jesus Christ. From the new hymn book, there's a hymn, Bread of Life, Living Water, and I think of verse 2 in that new hymn. Jesus Jesus sacrificed his body on the cross in bitter pain, freely gave his life for us so that we would live again. Bread of life, living water, feed my soul, fill my heart. Lord, give me new life in thee, and make me whole, complete and holy, bound to thee eternally. If you think about the cycle of making bread and growing the wheat for the bread, there's a lot of ties to the life of Christ and the sacrifice he made for us. The first thing is when we harvest, before we can harvest the wheat wheat plant has to die. Otherwise, it's too wet and it's hard to separate and so forth from green grass, so you need a dry plant. And so from a dead plant, we harvest that wheat, and then the cycle is some of the wheat goes off the side, most of the wheat actually, but we got to keep some seeds as wheat. And we take those wheat seeds and we put them into the ground. We bury them from a dead source, and it springs forth into life to bring a new plant that grows and multiplies. And then we have another season of harvest, and we pull that wheat, we separate it from the wheat and the chaffs, and then the wheat gets ground into flour, it gets pulverized, and then from there we add water to it, baptism or the blood of Christ, bread and water. And then from there we put it into the oven, a hot oven. It's a long time ago, or not too long ago, bread was baked by fire. And so now this bread goes through a torment of fire. And then at the end, we finally get to enjoy the fruits of those labors of consuming that bread. And it nourishes our souls and makes us whole, and allows us to live our lives so that we can do our daily chores and everything else. So there we can separate off the whisper mill from the bin and put this away. So there's a bin full of flour, and that I'll put in the container and have it ready for making bread in the morning. Sometimes I'll add some store-bought flour to it, but I'm getting away from doing that. But I have a supply of it right now, and so I'm using it up. Mix that together with what I make. And you could make bread just with flour. You don't have to have a mill. But you don't have to grind your own. You can do whatever you want. But having tools around is always handy, and brings a lot more joy in life to do things on your own. Say, I made that, or I'm doing that. It makes life a whole lot more enjoyable. What I'll sometimes do is when I make a batch of bread, I typically use 1,000 grams of flour, 20 grams of salt, and about 675 grams of water. But often when I'm mixing up the flour, having ground it, weigh out 1,000 grams of flour so it's ready to go. This will go in a separate container if I can keep from spilling. Okay, there's 1,000 grams right there. Now, one of the things with flour is it compresses really easy. This shows one of the reasons why you want to weigh your flour instead of measuring it with a measuring cup. That looks like it's full. That's 1,000 grams. But I can also tamp it down just a little bit. And now I've got inch and a half on the top. And that's just from a little bit of shaking, a little bit of movement. It changed it that much. And then I'll take the rest of the flour that I ground up and put it in the fridge to keep it for next time. So this will give me probably about enough flour for the next loaf or next batch next week. I typically get 2 loaves per batch, so that gives me 2 a week. They last about 3 or 4 days, so I can bake twice a week. Bake them one batch, bake them in 2 different loaves in 2 different days, and then I've always got bread. Okay, so next step on bread making. So yesterday I topped off my dough minions, the start. If you look at the jar, it's come up, last night is about where my fingernail is, it's come up there. It's not quite enough, but we do need to get the bread dough going so that it can do its chemical reactions and so forth. I think it's called autolyse or something. But I'm also going to let this grow a little bit faster. I want it close to the top of the jar by the time we add it in a few hours. So I'm going to put it on the pet warming pad. Put a little kitchen towel over the top of it so it can sit there and get nice and happy and growing and all that stuff. Meantime, let's get the bread dough going with autolyse. So yesterday when I made the flour, I measured out 1,000 grams or 1 kilo of flour. So we'll add that to our mixer bowl. You can do this by hand or whatever, and then we're going to measure out 20 grams, so tare it, 20 grams of salt, so we'll measure that out. I tend to like to use the real salt. It's got some iron and other trace minerals in it. Oops, that's a little much, 27 grams. Let's put a little bit back. See where we're at. 24, 22, 21, close enough. So we'll get that into the flour. And then we're going to add water. So we'll tear out the container here. Water you can get exact by volume or by scale, but I prefer to just do it on the scale, a little bit more consistent. So I'm aiming for about between 650 and 675 grams of water. Get that up there, 621, just 645, 655, close enough. So some of the recipes I've come through in the past, and when I first started making bread, it was saying 750 grams of water for this much, and everything was just a big sticky mess. but recently found, oh yeah, I got to reduce the amount of water. So we'll just take that, add it in there. And then we can put that on the base. And to keep it from splashing out, I'll just hit a few times till it's not going to splash out. And then we just let it run for a minute until it goes into just a single lump. You can do this by hand. There's other mixers. This is an old Bosch mixer that we've had for, I don't know, 20, 30 years or somewhere like that. It's done us well. Just let it go. Just a note on the water that I use. I typically use distilled water. I have a distiller for several purposes, but one of them is for making bread. I just don't want the chlorine and other things that are in the tap water getting involved with the growth of the microbes. If you're putting in chlorine, I don't know how many of them it kills or other things, but just to make it a little bit more pure bread, I use distilled water. Okay, that's good. So we'll just set the mixer aside. It's just after 8 o'clock in the morning. After about 12:30, 1 o'clock or something like that, we'll see if it's ready to put the two ingredients, the start and the dough itself together. Once it's done with its autolyse. I'll show you that when that time comes. I'm back a few hours later. The autolyse is pretty well done. It took a little bit longer than I anticipated. It's about 2:30. I was expecting about 12:30, 1 o'clock, somewhere in there. What you're looking for is if you take a lump of the dough and you pull it, it should get thin like a window. And you can see light through it, and it's still stuck together. And that's what I understand it's supposed to be, but it works for me at about that timing. You also see didn't quite rise as well as I thought, but it's plenty frothy. You look inside, it's bubbly, it's kind of loose and so forth. So what I'll do with that is I'll take a jar of that, and I'm just going to pull out most of it. Leave enough in there to get it started for the next week or the next batch. So I pull that out. There's just a little bit left in the bottom of the jar. We'll get this start in the bowl. And while it's getting it incorporated into the dough there, I'll weigh out a little bit more to get the start going for the next week, or actually just to keep it alive and going for the next week. So I'll take that, put the lid on it, just turn that on, turn on my scale, put that on, tear that, and I'm just going to keep the start alive with adding about 20 grams of flour. So I'll bring that up to, there's 14, 20 grams right there. So 20 grams of flour, and add 20 grams of water as well. So a little bit more than 20 grams, but it's close enough. And what you want to do with that is just stir it up get the water into the flour, get what remaining starch is in the jar mixed into it, so that it's allows the starch to grow over the next week. So I'll put the lid on this, and this will just go in the fridge for about 5 to 6 days, and I'll just leave it. The microbes live pretty good with that. If you really want to, you can feed it in the middle of the week, but it doesn't have to be fed every day. It just needs to be fed enough to keep it alive. And I quite often just leave it for up to 5 or 6 days, but you really don't want to go much longer than that. So I'll put that in the fridge. And then our dough is mixed. It's incorporated in there pretty good. And we'll take that off. So at this point in time, it kind of looks a little wet, but you can see how nice and stiff that is. That's good to go. And I'll take it out of the mixer because it just, once it's risen and so forth, getting it off this hook and the center post on it. If you're buying a mixer new just for making bread, I wouldn't recommend this mixer. This mixer is great for a bunch of other stuff, but it's kind of a universal one, and I'm not sure they make it anymore, but anyway, I'll take that, and I like to just put it in this bowl, and what we're going to do with this is we'll put it in this bowl, and a couple times later today, once we'll in 2 to 4 hours or something like that, we'll fold it and then let it sit another 2 or 4 hours or something like that, and we'll fold it again, divide it, and put it in the bannetons at that point in time. So okay, let's see if we can get the little crummies out, or the last bits. There we go. And we'll just put a cloth over the top of that and let it sit for a couple, 3 hours or whatever before we fold it. So the bread sat all afternoon. It's now about 6:15 in the afternoon. A couple hours ago I turned it over, so forth, but you can see in the bowl it's kind of getting a little rise to it, but not excessive. At this point in time, I'll just take this and fold it over a couple times. Nothing fancy. I know some of the artisan bread makers and so forth, okay, you got to fold it this way and so forth. Really, it's bread. I eat it. I'm not super concerned about the exact look of the bread as I am the flavor and the fact that it is bread. So put down just a little bit of flour on the counter, keep it from sticking so much, and we'll take that out of the bowl, put it on the counter, because we're going to put it into our bannetons. Okay, so that's done there. Put a little bit of flour on top of them. Not a lot, just enough to keep things from sticking. Flour always makes a mess. And I'm going to just divide this approximately in half. And I 3D printed some bannetons. We did have some of the wooden bannetons, but they're getting gross. And all sorts of stuff grows in the wood and so forth. And they're also the wrong size for the pan I put it in. So I designed these up so that they would match the pan that I cooked the bread in. And then I use parchment paper in the banneton, keep it from sticking to the banneton. And then I'll take a piece, stretch it, fold it, and put it in there. There's some real artistic ways of doing it. Like I said, I don't think that really matters because in the end, it just all kind of turns into a ball anyway. Then I put cloth cover over the top of it. Do the same with the other one. I'll take that, stretch it a bit, fold it, put it in there. So we've got 2 loaves, approximately the same size. If you want to get really specific, you could weigh it out and all that other stuff, but really it's a loaf of bread for home use. Now what I do is, in order to get through the week, I'll put one in the freezer like this, and I'll pull it out in about 4 days, 3 or 4 days, and then put it in the fridge. And then the other one will just go in the fridge for a couple days before I cook it. That lets it, the microbes fully digest and the nutrients and so forth in the flour, because really what we're eating is the microbes, and they pre-digest the wheat and so forth so that we can more easily digest it. So that's it at this stage. Until I get to the next stage, we'll talk to you later. So for rising the bread, I'll usually set it out on the counter, let it rise. But if it's not rising quite quick enough, it's usually because it's not quite warm enough. And what I found is just a nice cloth over the top. You can see our bread, it's getting pretty close in there. This is a pet pad, or a warming pad for pets. It's a heated pad. It stays right about body temperature, which is the ideal temperature for the microbes to make the bread rise. And you put it on there, and that's the fastest it's going to rise. Sometimes if I need to get my start going a little bit faster, I'll also put the start on that warming pad. But this is a loaf of bread that's getting pretty close to going in the oven. I'll let it sit another hour or 2 and bake this loaf of bread. So I'll continue with the making the bread. I've had the banneton with the bread in it sitting in the fridge for 2 days. This morning, about 4:30, 5 o'clock this morning, I got it out of the fridge and set it on the counter, not on the pet warmer yet. Went to work, got home from work about 3 o'clock, put it on the pet warmer because it wasn't quite risen as far as I wanted it to be. And now it's about an hour and a half later, and it's expanded pretty good. It's nice and healthy. If you look at it, how it responds to touch, it slightly bounces back. You can see that it's kind of bubbly and so forth. I've got the oven turned on at 450. The oven's come to temperature. I've got a Dutch oven in there, or a pan that's like a Dutch oven. One of the real secrets is putting it in a Dutch oven with a lid. When I first tried making bread, I just ended out with bricks. Hard as a rock on the outside and still doughy inside and burning on the outside. But having a Dutch oven to hold the moisture in when it cooks allows it to stay soft and rise and all the other stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to score it, then I'm going to put it in the Dutch oven in the oven and let it bake for 20 minutes with the lid on. And then after 20 minutes, I'll take the lid off and then I'll let it stay in the oven for another 7 minutes to continue baking. And then at that point in time, I'll take it out. Some people like it a little bit more darker, kind of a more caramelized on the surface. To me, it's more, I'd rather have the moisture in the bread and so forth. So I'm going to score this. You don't have to score it. It's kind of artistic. I've had mixed success with it. You can get real fancy and so forth. I'll just make an X in it, and we'll get it ready to put in the oven. So like I said, take that. The bottom of the pan, I've got a little trivet or a wire mesh thing in the bottom of the pan. That keeps it from burning on the bottom. And I just use the parchment paper to set it in. And then take the lid, put that on, put it in, and echo, 20-minute timer.
20 minutes, starting now.
So that's my reminder in 20 minutes to take the lid off the pan. And I'll show you what it looks like at that point in time. Okay. Echo stop. Echo, 7-minute timer. Okay, timer's going off, so let's pull out the bread. Open it up. Ouch. There it is. Turn that. Echo stop. Set the pan aside to cool. This is the piece I put in the pan, keep it off the bottom. And at this point, I'll take off the parchment paper. That can be thrown away. And the bread. Here, I'll let you see the loaf of bread in all its glory and all my shakiness there. Then I'll take this bread. You know, if you're going to eat the whole loaf of bread or most of the loaf of bread, you could cut it up while it's nice and hot. But since I'm going to be eating over 2 or 3 days, if you cut it right now, all the steam and moisture comes out, and then it's kind of dry and so forth. So what I like to do is you can leave it out until it's completely cool. You want it cool all the way inside. And it is still baking on the inside a bit. I like just take the kitchen towel, wrap it, and I'll leave it like that until morning. It's about 5 o'clock. So about 11 hours from now, I'll get up, and when I'm cooking breakfast for myself, I'll slice it into slices of bread, and I'll show you how that works later. Talk to you later. So good morning. Now it's time to enjoy the bread. The bread sat for a few hours cooling off, ready to slice and eat. Found this on Amazon. A daughter-in-law recommended this to me. It makes a whole lot less crumbs, but you got to hold on to it and so forth. It needs a little bit better anchoring. Maybe I'll make some way to anchor it down a little bit better so it doesn't slide around. And just slice the bread, and I end out with kind of a tight crumb. I don't like the big giant bubbles, which some people end up getting on their bread. This is nice, and to me it's nice and dense, but there's some different ways you can go about getting some different crumbs. You can end out getting a little bit more artistic than that, but reality is your stomach doesn't care what it looks like. It cares about what nutrition is in there. And so this bread ends out being perfect for me. There's all sorts of different bread recipes, different types of bread you can make using the sourdough start. I know there's people that make pancakes and flatbread and other things, but it's a matter of just learning how to make different types of bread. Just like we're different people, we like different things, and a lot of things, there's just no wrong way of doing it. It's a matter of what you like to do and how you like to do it that matters, and whether or not you enjoy what you're doing. And from there, I'll take out a piece that I'm going to have for breakfast. Crust comes off pretty good, but oh, it's wonderful bread. Well, make your own bread and enjoy. So, good morning. Just one more quick note. I had mentioned earlier that put some of the dough in the freezer. So if I pull this out, this can happen anytime afterwards because this can sit for much longer. Got it in a, there we are, just in a big Ziploc bag, but some of the moisture in it's kind of come on to the surface of the bag. And I just take that, I put it in the fridge to de-thaw. Never mind my messy fridge. Put that in there, let it thaw for a couple days in the fridge, and then pull it out of the fridge just like the other loaf, and let it warm up for about 12 hours or so in the room temperature. Let it rise and bake it just like the other loaf. Works great. Talk to you later.